The year was 2387, and humanity had finally done what they had dreamed about for centuries. They had built ships that could travel faster than light, and they had sent their best and brightest to explore the stars. Captain Daniel Shaw stood on the bridge of the starship Endeavour, watching the main screen as his ship moved through space. He was a tall man with gray hair at his temples and calm brown eyes that had seen many things during his 30 years in the space service. "We are entering the Centauri system now." "Captain," said Lieutenant Katie Morgan from her station. She was young, only 26 years old, with red hair tied back in a neat ponytail. This was her first deep space mission, and she could barely contain her excitement. Daniel nodded slowly. "Take us in, nice and easy. Let's see what's out here." Endeavour was not a warship. It carried no heavy weapons, only basic defensive systems. It was an exploration vessel, designed to make contact with new worlds and new civilizations. The 400 men and women aboard had trained for years to be ambassadors of Earth. To show the galaxy that humanity came in peace, they had no idea that the galaxy did not want peace with them. Ensign Nathan Cole was working in the engineering section when the first alarm sounded. He was 23 years old, fresh out of the academy, with dark hair and green eyes that were always curious about how things worked. He looked up from his console as red lights began flashing throughout the ship. "What's happening?" he asked Chief Engineer Martha Simmons, a heavy-set woman who had served on starships for over 20 years. Before she could answer, the ship shook violently. Nathan was thrown against the wall, hitting his head hard enough to see stars. Through the ringing in his ears, he heard screams and the terrible sound of metal tearing apart. On the bridge, Captain Shaw gripped his command chair as another blast hit the ship. The main screen showed their attacker clearly now a sleek silver vessel, beautiful and deadly. Firing beam after beam of green energy at the Endeavour. "They came out of nowhere," Katie Morgan reported, her voice shaking but professional. "No warning, no communication, nothing. They just started shooting." "Hail them," Daniel ordered. "All frequencies. Tell them we come in peace. Tell them we mean no harm." Katie tried. She sent messages in every language humanity knew, using every communication method available. She broadcast mathematical sequences, universal symbols of peace, anything that might make the attackers understand that they were not enemies. The silver ship responded by firing again. This time, the blast tore through the Endeavour's midsection, killing 60 people instantly. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, someone shouted. "We're losing atmosphere. Emergency bulkheads," Daniel commanded. "Get everyone to the escape pods." But there was no time. The alien ship fired again and again, each shot precise and devastating. It was not trying to disable them. It was trying to destroy them completely. In engineering, Nathan Cole crawled through smoke and flames, helping whoever he could reach. He found Martha Simmons pinned under a fallen beam, her legs crushed. She looked at him with eyes that knew the truth. "Get out of here, boy," she said. "Get to the pods." "I'm not leaving you," Nathan replied, trying to lift the beam. Martha grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "Listen to me. Someone has to survive this. Someone has to tell Earth what happened here. You go, you live. You remember?" The ship shook again, and Nathan was thrown backward. When he looked up, the section where Martha had been was gone, open to space. He ran. Captain Daniel Shaw was the last to leave the bridge. He had sent everyone else to the escape pods, staying behind to send one final message to Earth. As he spoke into the recorder, the alien ship appeared on his screen again, moving closer. "This is Captain Daniel Shaw of the starship Endeavour. We have been attacked without warning or provocation by an unknown alien vessel. Our ship is destroyed. Most of my crew is dead. I am transmitting all sensor data we have collected. Earth must know what happened here. Earth must be prepared." He paused, looking at the silver ship that had murdered his people. "It came in peace. We offered friendship. They gave us death. Do not forgive them. Do not forget." The final blast destroyed the bridge. Captain Shaw never made it to an escape pod. Nathan Cole was one of 37 survivors. They drifted in small pods for 3 weeks before rescue ships from Earth found them. 3 weeks of floating in the dark, rationing air and water, not knowing if help would ever come. 3 weeks of nightmares about green fire and the screams of dying friends, when he finally returned to Earth. Nathan was brought before the United Earth Council to tell his story. He stood in front of the most powerful leaders in human history and told them about the attack, about the Silver Ship, about the way it had ignored every attempt at communication. "They didn't care," he said, his voice hollow. "They didn't want to talk. They just wanted us dead." Admiral Patricia Lane listened to his testimony with a face of stone. She was 60 years old, a veteran of the colonial conflicts, with short white hair and eyes like ice. When Nathan finished speaking, she addressed the council. "We have intercepted and decoded communications from the alien vessel," she announced. The ship belonged to something called the Valori Hegemony, one of 12 species in an organization they call the Galactic Council. She pressed a button, and a translated message played for the chamber. The alien voice was cold and arrogant. "The primitive species known as humans has been dealt with. Their vessel was destroyed before it could contaminate our territory. High Counselor Zethra has declared that these creatures are vermin, unworthy of space travel. The Council agrees unanimously. If more of them appear, they will be exterminated." The chamber was silent. 400 people had died, and the aliens were celebrating like they had killed insects. Admiral Lane spoke again. "They struck first. They killed our people without provocation. They have declared us unworthy of existence and promised to exterminate us if we dare to explore our own galaxy." She looked around at the council members, at the representatives of every nation on Earth. "They gave us no choice. They wanted a war. Now they will have one. But it will not be the war they expect. We will not rush blindly into battle. We will prepare. We will build. We will become something they cannot imagine. And when we are ready, we will show them exactly what humanity is capable of." Nathan Cole stood in the gallery, listening to her words. He thought about Martha Simmons, about Captain Shaw, about all the friends he had watched die. He thought about the alien message, calling them vermin, declaring them unworthy. He made a promise to himself that day. He would live to see the Galactic Council answer for what they had done. No matter how long it took, no matter what he had to sacrifice, he would see justice done. The war had begun, though no more shots had been fired. It was a war of preparation, of patience, of cold determination, and humanity would not lose. 50 years passed, and the galaxy forgot about humanity. The Galactic Council continued their business as usual, trading between worlds, settling minor disputes, and ruling their territory with the confidence of species who had never faced a real challenge. The Valori hegemony grew even more arrogant, telling stories about how they had crushed the primitive humans with a single ship. They laughed about it at their gatherings, boasting about how easy it had been. They should have been watching more carefully, deep in human space. On colony worlds that the Council did not even know existed, something was growing. Commander Lisa Grant stood in the construction bay of the new Texas shipyard, watching as workers put the finishing touches on the greatest warship humanity had ever built. She was 45 years old, with dark skin and close-cropped gray hair. A woman who had dedicated her entire life to this moment. The ship was called the Retribution. It was twice the size of the Endeavor, but where the Endeavor had been built for peace, the Retribution was built for war. Every line of its hull, every system in its core, every weapon on its surface had been designed with one purpose: to make the Galactic Council regret what they had done. "She's beautiful," said Chief Engineer Nathan Cole. Standing beside Commander Grant, he was 73 years old now, his hair white, his face lined with age. But his green eyes still held the same fire they had held when he escaped the Endeavor. He had spent 50 years working on this project, using everything he learned from the alien weapons that had killed his friends. Lisa nodded. "Beautiful and deadly. Just like we planned, the Retribution was not alone. Across human space in shipyards hidden from any possible Council surveillance, 499 more warships were being completed. Each one was crewed by men and women who had grown up hearing stories about the Endeavor, who had been trained since childhood for the war that was coming. on the colony world of New Boston. A young man named Samuel Hayes was doing something even more important than building ships. He was building strategy. Samuel was 32 years old, tall and thin, with brown hair that was always messy because he forgot to comb it. He had graduated at the top of his class at the military academy, but his true genius was not in fighting battles. It was in understanding them. He stood before a holographic display showing the entire galaxy. With the territories of all 12 council species marked in different colors, Admiral Patricia Lane sat across from him, still leading humanity's military forces despite her advanced age. Her body was old, but her mind was as sharp as ever. Every species in the council fights the same way, Samuel explained, pointing to the display. They use formation attacks. They follow strict protocols. They communicate on predictable frequencies. They've been doing it for 10,000 years because it has always worked. And you think you can beat a system that has worked for 10,000 years? Patricia asked, not challenging him, just curious. Samuel smiled. I think they've forgotten what it means to face an enemy who doesn't follow their rules. They've never fought humans before. They don't know about our history, our wars, our ability to adapt. They think we're primitive because we're young. But our youth is our advantage. He pulled up another display, showing human battle tactics throughout history. Ancient armies that had defeated larger forces through clever maneuvering. Naval battles won by unconventional thinking. Guerrilla wars, where small groups had brought down empires. We will not fight fair, he continued. We will use deception, misdirection, and overwhelming force at points they don't expect. We will attack where they are weak and retreat before they can respond. We will make them afraid of every shadow, every system, every moment. And when they are stretched thin, confused, and demoralized, we will strike their heart. Patricia studied the young man for a long moment. She had seen many officers come and go, many plans proposed and rejected. But there was something in Samuel's eyes that she recognized, the same cold determination she had felt when she first heard about the Endeavor massacre. Show me more, she said, for the next 10 hours. Samuel Hayes laid out his complete strategy for the war against the Galactic Council. Patricia listened, asked questions, challenged assumptions. By the end, she was convinced. You'll have everything you need, she told him. Ships, troops, resources. But Samuel, remember one thing. We are not fighting to become what they are. We will defeat them, but we will do it without becoming monsters ourselves. Samuel nodded. I understand, Admiral. We will show them that strength and mercy can exist together. It will confuse them even more than our tactics. While Samuel planned the war, others prepared for it in different ways. Dr. Karen Phillips led a team of scientists who had spent decades studying the alien technology recovered from the Endeavor attack. They had not just copied it, they had improved it. The Valori used plasma-based weapons, Karen explained to a group of young engineers. Powerful, but slow to recharge. Our new beam weapons are faster, more accurate, and can be modified in the field for different situations. The same is true for their shields, their engines, their sensors. In every category, we have surpassed them. She paused, looking at the faces before her. Many of them were descendants of Endeavor crew members. All of them had grown up knowing that they would one day face the species that had tried to exterminate humanity. But technology alone will not win this war. It will be won by your courage, your creativity, your refusal to accept defeat. The Council thinks we are vermin. We will show them that we are the most dangerous species this galaxy has ever seen. The young engineers cheered, their voices echoing through the research facility far away on Earth itself. The truth about the war preparations was still a closely guarded secret. Most humans knew that their species had been attacked, that the Galactic Council had declared them unworthy of existence, but they did not know about the 500 warships, the advanced weapons, the brilliant strategies waiting to be unleashed. They would learn soon enough. In his small apartment on the new Texas colony, Nathan Cole looked at an old photograph. It showed him as a young man, standing with his engineering team on the Endeavor. Martha Simmons was there, smiling, her arm around his shoulder. Captain Shaw stood in the back, looking proud of his crew. All of them were dead now. all except Nathan. "We're almost ready," he whispered to the photograph. 50 years, just like the Admiral promised. Soon, the galaxy will know what it means to make enemies of humanity. Soon, you'll all be avenged. He placed the photograph back on his shelf and returned to his work. There were still final adjustments to be made, last checks to be performed. The Retribution and her sister ships would launch in 3 months. Everything had to be perfect. 50 years of preparation. 50 years of patience. 50 years of building something that the Galactic Council could not. Imagine, in their worst nightmares, the time for waiting. It was almost over. The time for war was about to begin. The Valerie border world of Kethmer. It was a peaceful place. Its people had never seen war, never experienced the fear of invasion. They lived under the protection of the mighty hegemony, confident that no enemy would ever dare to challenge their territory. The orbital defense platforms that circled their world were more tradition than necessity, staffed by bored soldiers who had never fired a weapon in anger. That changed on a quiet morning. When 500 human warships appeared in their sky, Captain Benjamin Price commanded the lead squadron from the bridge of his ship, the Vengeance. He was 38 years old, with blonde hair cut short in military style and blue eyes that missed nothing. His grandfather had been a junior officer on the Endeavor, one of the many who died in the initial attack. Benjamin had grown up with stories of that day, and now he was here to write a new chapter. "All ships report status," he said calmly into his communicator one by one. The squadron commanders confirmed they were ready. 500 ships, 300,000 human soldiers, all waiting for his order. Begin the operation. The Valari had no chance to respond. Human electronic warfare systems jammed their communications before they could send a distress signal. Precision strikes disabled the orbital platforms in minutes. It's not destroying them completely, but rendering their weapons useless. Landing craft descended to the planet's surface, securing key locations without harming a single civilian. The whole operation took 4 hours. When the Valari reinforcement fleet finally arrived, responding to the silence from Kethmer, they found human ships waiting for them in perfect defensive formation. The battle was brief and one-sided. Valari tactics, unchanged for thousands of years, were completely ineffective against enemies who did not fight by the rules. Captain Price broadcast a message on all frequencies, knowing it would spread across the galaxy within days. "This is Captain Benjamin Price of the United Human Fleet. We have taken control of the Kethmer system. No civilians have been harmed. No unnecessary destruction has occurred. We are not like you." He paused, letting the words sink in. 50 years ago, your hegemony attacked our ship without warning. You killed 400 innocent people. Your High Counselor called us vermin. Your council approved our extermination. We have not forgotten. The message continued across council space, spreading fear wherever it reached. The primitive species they had dismissed was not only fighting back, it was winning. High Counselor Zethra received the news in his private chambers on the Valori homeworld. He was old now, ancient by Valerie's standards, but he still held absolute power over his species. When his advisors showed him the recordings from Kethmer, he refused to believe them. "Impossible," he declared. "These humans are primitive. They cannot have developed such technology in only 50 years. "The evidence is clear, High Counselor," his military commander replied nervously. "Their ships are faster than ours. Their weapons are more powerful. Their tactics are unlike anything we have encountered." His face twisted with anger. "Then we will crush them with numbers. Call upon the Council. Demand their support. This infestation must be eliminated." But the other Council species were not eager to help. They had seen the recordings too. They had heard the human captain's words, and they remembered that they had all voted to approve the extermination of humanity. If the humans won, they would all face judgment. While the Council argued, the human fleet did not wait. Samuel Hayes had planned the campaign perfectly. Strike after strike hit Valori military installations. Always precise, always devastating, always leaving civilians unharmed. The hegemony's proud fleet was reduced piece by piece. Unable to predict where the humans would appear next, Commander Lisa Grant led the assault on Valkith, the Valerie homeworld itself. The Retribution and 50 other ships faced a defense force of 200 Valori vessels and destroyed them in less than 3 hours. Their formation is breaking, reported her tactical officer, a young woman named Susan Clark. They're retreating toward the planet. Lisa shook her head. They're not retreating. They're trying to use civilian areas as shields. They think we won't fire on their cities, will we? Susan asked. Oh, no, we're not monsters. But we don't need to. Lisa opened a channel to the fleeing ships. Valerie vessels, this is Commander Grant of the human warship Retribution. Your military installations will be destroyed. Your civilian population will not be harmed. But if any ship attempts to use civilians as cover, that ship will be disabled and its crew arrested for war crimes. Choose wisely. One by one, the Valori ships surrendered. They had never faced an enemy who could defeat them so easily while still showing mercy. They did not know how to respond. The planetary defense grid, considered impenetrable by Council standards, fell in 3 days. Human ground forces landed, securing government buildings and military bases with minimal casualties on both sides. The Valori soldiers, trained to fight against enemies who followed predictable patterns, were helpless against human adaptability. High Counselor Zethra was captured trying to escape in a private vessel. He was brought before a human tribunal, guarded by soldiers whose families had been aboard the Endeavor. Nathan Cole was there. He had requested permission to witness the trial, and Admiral Lane had granted it. He stood in the gallery. Looking down at the creature who had ordered the death of everyone he loved, Zethra showed no remorse. Even in chains, he spoke with arrogance. You will regret this, he declared to the tribunal. The Council will not allow this insult to stand. When they unite against you, your species will be erased from existence. The human judge, a woman named Dorothy Adams, regarded him calmly. The Galactic Council approved the murder of 400 unarmed humans. They celebrated our deaths. They declared us unworthy of existence. Now they will face the consequences of those choices. She looked at the evidence before her recordings of the Endeavor attack. Transcripts of council meetings, documentation of every decision that had led to this moment. Counselor Zethra, you are found guilty of ordering the unprovoked attack on a peaceful human vessel. You are found guilty of the murder of 400 human citizens. You are found guilty of attempting to organize the extermination of the human species. Zethra laughed. And what will you do? Execute me. Torture me. Show your true savage nature? No, Judge Adams replied. You will be imprisoned for the remainder of your natural life. You will watch as everything you built is dismantled. You will see your hegemony become a memory. And you will know that it happened because of your arrogance, your cruelty, your refusal to treat other species with basic dignity. She stood, looking down at him with something that might have been pity, could kill you. Many of our people want exactly that, but we will not become what you are. We will show the galaxy that humanity can be both strong and merciful. That is a lesson you never learned, and it is why you have lost. Zethra was taken away to begin his sentence. He would live for another 30 years, watching from his cell as humanity reshaped the galaxy. Nathan Cole left the tribunal building and walked through the streets of the conquered Valori capital. Civilians moved around him, going about their daily lives. They were not being mistreated. They were not being punished for the crimes of their leaders. They were simply being shown a different way. He stopped at a small park and sat on a bench, looking up at the alien sky. Somewhere up there, the Retribution orbited, ready to defend against any Council counterattack. Somewhere in human space, more ships were being built, more soldiers trained. The war was not over. The Valori were defeated, but 11 other Council species remained. They would have to be dealt with one way or another. But for this moment, Nathan allowed himself to feel something he had not felt in 50 years. Hope, the great chamber of the Galactic Council had stood for 12,000 years. Its walls were made of crystal that sang with the harmonics of a dozen different species. Its ceiling displayed the stars of the galaxy, each one representing a world under council protection. For millennia, this chamber had been the center of galactic civilization, where the most powerful beings in existence gathered to decide the fate of trillions. Now it was filled with fear. The 11 remaining council species sat in their designated sections, each delegation trying to hide their terror behind masks of dignity. The Valori section was empty, a reminder of what happened to those who underestimated humanity. Reports from the front lines arrived every hour, each one worse than the last. Human forces were advancing on multiple fronts, defeating every fleet sent against them, capturing every world they targeted, and they were doing it without atrocities, without genocide, without the brutality that council species had always assumed was the mark of a powerful civilization. Ambassador Ruth Patterson walked into the chamber alone. She was 68 years old, small and thin, with silver hair pulled back from a face that had seen both tragedy and triumph. She wore a simple gray suit, no jewelry, no symbols of rank. She did not need them. Every eye in the chamber followed her as she approached the central speaking platform. The guards who would normally stop an outsider stepped aside without a word. Everyone knew who she was. Everyone knew why she was here. Ruth stopped at the platform and looked around the chamber slowly, meeting the eyes of each delegation in turn. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but clear. 50 years ago, my species reached out to the stars for the first time. We sent our best people, our brightest minds, our most hopeful dreamers. They came in peace, carrying messages of friendship, eager to meet whatever civilizations they might find. She paused, letting the silence stretch. You killed them. Not in battle. Not in self-defense. You killed 400 unarmed humans because you decided we were vermin. Because you thought we were unworthy of existence. Because you believed you had the right to judge which species deserved to live. Counselor Mindel of the Etherian Combine rose from his seat. He was tall and slender, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes that showed his nervousness. Ambassador, please understand, we did not know the full details of what occurred. The Valori acted without consulting. Stop, Ruth said, her voice cutting through his words like a blade. We intercepted your communications. We have records of every council meeting for the past 50 years. We know exactly what you said, what you decided, what you approved. She pulled a small device from her pocket and pressed a button. Holographic images appeared in the air above her, showing transcripts and recordings. Counselor Mindel, 3 days after the Endeavor attack, you said, and I quote, "The Valori have done the galaxy a service. These humans were clearly a disease that needed to be eliminated before it could spread." Do you remember that? Mindel's face went pale. He sat down without another word. Ruth continued, pulling up more records. Counselor Krelvin of the Dorothy Collective voted to provide additional weapons to the Valori, specifically for use against human targets. Counselor Shatheen of the Mirai Dominion suggested that human colony worlds should be sterilized from orbit. Every single species represented in this chamber either actively supported our extermination or did nothing to stop it. She lowered the device, looking at them with eyes that held no anger, only cold. Absolute certainty. Now you want peace. Now that your precious Valori hegemony lies broken, now that our ships control your borders, now that you have seen what happens when you underestimate humanity, suddenly you remember that diplomacy exists. Outside the council chamber, the human fleet held position. 3,000 warships surrounded the council's central station. More military power than the remaining 11 species could hope to match. General Chris Davis commanded from the Bridge of the Liberty, watching sensor displays that tracked every council vessel in the system. They're scared, observed Lieutenant Amy Torres, his aide. She was 25 years old, the daughter of 2 Endeavor survivors who had escaped in the same pod and married a year after their rescue. I never thought I'd see a council delegation look so afraid. They should be, Chris replied. His grandfather had been the Endeavor's chief of security, killed in the first moments of the attack. They spent 50 years believing they were untouchable. Now they're learning what it feels like to be at someone else's mercy. Amy nodded slowly. Do you think they'll accept our terms? Some will, some won't. Either way, The galaxy they knew is over. He looked at the council station on the main screen. The question is whether they're smart enough to accept the new reality, or stupid enough to try fighting it. Inside the chamber, Ruth Patterson was delivering humanity's demands. First, all council species will disarm their offensive military forces. You will maintain only defensive capabilities sufficient to protect your own territories. Protests erupted from several delegations. Ruth waited for them to quiet down before continuing. Second, you will pay reparations to the families of every human killed by council actions. This includes the Endeavour crew and all casualties from the recent war. The amount will be calculated based on your species' economic capabilities. More protests, more outrage. Ruth ignored them. Third, you will formally acknowledge your crimes against humanity. Every citizen of every council species will learn what their governments did. The truth will not be hidden or forgotten. Counselor Krelvin of the Dorothy Collective stood up angrily. These terms are unacceptable. You cannot expect us to simply surrender everything our ancestors built. The Council has maintained peace in this galaxy for 12,000 years. Peace for whom? Ruth asked quietly. How many species did you exterminate before they could become threats? How many civilizations did you destroy because they were unworthy of space travel? Your peace was built on the bones of countless innocents. She stepped closer to him, her small frame somehow dominating the much larger alien. You had 50 years to reach out to us. 50 years to apologize, to offer reparations, to acknowledge what you had done. Instead, you reinforced the Valori. You provided them with weapons. You laughed at our suffering. Every choice you made led to this moment. Ruth turned back to address the full chamber. Fourth and finally, the Galactic Sea Council as an organization will be dissolved. This institution that approved genocide, that celebrated murder, that declared an entire species unworthy of existence, it ends here. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted at each other, at Ruth, at anyone who would listen. Some demanded war. Others begged for negotiation. A few sat in stunned silence, realizing that their entire way of life was ending. Ruth watched them without expression. When the noise finally died down, she spoke again. You have 72 hours to comply with these terms. If you accept, humanity will work with you to build a new galactic community based on mutual respect and genuine equality. Your people will not be harmed. Your cultures will not be destroyed. You will simply be held accountable for your actions. She began walking toward the exit, then stopped and looked back. If you refuse, or if you attempt any treachery during this period, our fleet will respond without mercy. You have seen what we can do. Do not test us. Ambassador Ruth Patterson left the council chamber. Behind her, the most powerful beings in the galaxy argued about their survival. 3,000 human warships waited outside. Ready for whatever answer they would give, the 72 hours began. The council did not accept humanity's terms. In secret meetings hidden from human surveillance, the 11 remaining species made one final desperate decision. They would pool every warship they had left, every weapon, every soldier, and launch a coordinated strike against Earth itself. If they could destroy the human homeworld, they believed the species would collapse. The colonies would surrender. The nightmare would end. They were wrong about everything. The Battle of Seoul began on a clear morning, Earth time. 4,000 council ships jumped into the system. More military power than had been gathered in one place for 3,000 years. They came from every direction. A ring of death closing around the cradle of humanity. Admiral Henry Brooks commanded the defense from the orbital station Sentinel. He was 73 years old, his hair white, his face weathered by decades of service. He had been a young officer when the Endeavour was destroyed, had dedicated his entire life to this moment. Now he stood on the command deck, watching the enemy fleet approach, and felt completely calm. Enemy count confirmed at 4,200 vessels. Reported Commander Paula Webb, his tactical officer. They're using a standard envelopment formation. Henry nodded slowly. Just like Samuel predicted. They can't imagine fighting any other way. Human Defense Force numbered only 800 ships. Every military analyst in the council had calculated that this would be an easy victory. They did not understand human warfare, signaled the fleet. Henry ordered. Execute pattern Sierra. The human ships did not form a defensive line. They did not try to match the council formation. Instead, they scattered, breaking into dozens of small groups that moved through space in seemingly random patterns. Drone swarms launched from carriers, filling the void with thousands of unmanned craft. Electronic warfare systems activated, flooding Council's sensors with false signals. The Council commanders were confused. This was not how battles were fought. Where was the formation? Where was the predictable exchange of fire? They ordered their ships to advance, to engage the enemy wherever they could find them. That was their final mistake. Captain. Michelle Young commanded the squadron that would deliver the killing blow to the Council flagship. She was 32 years old, with dark hair and fierce brown eyes that had watched her father die when she was 7 years old. He had been a colony militia officer, killed defending his world from Valori raiders. She had sworn at his grave that she would see the Council pay for their crimes. Her squadron numbered only 12 ships, but they were the best crews in the fleet, flying the most advanced vessels humanity had ever built. They moved through the chaos of battle like ghosts, using the drone swarms as cover, slipping past Council formations while the enemy chased shadows. Target in range, reported her weapons officer. A young man named Kevin Marsh. They don't even see us. Michelle looked at the Council flagship on her screen. It was enormous, 5 times the size of any human vessel, covered with weapons that could destroy a city with a single shot. It was supposed to be invincible. All ships fire. 12 beams of concentrated energy struck the flagship simultaneously, each one targeting a critical system that human intelligence had identified months ago. The Council's shields, designed to stop frontal assaults, were useless against attacks from inside their own formation. The flagship's engines exploded first, then its weapons, then its reactor. The most powerful warship in the galaxy broke apart in less than 30 seconds. Across the battle, the story was the same. Human squadrons struck from unexpected angles, destroyed high-value targets, and vanished before the Council could respond. The enemy formation, so impressive on paper, became a chaotic mess of ships trying to find enemies they could not track. Admiral Brooks watched the battle unfold with quiet satisfaction. Losses: 47 ships destroyed, 123 damaged, Commander Webb reported. Council losses exceed 2,000 vessels and climbing. By the end of the battle, over 3,000 Council ships had been destroyed or captured. The remainder fled in every direction, their commanders desperate to escape the nightmare that Earth had become. There would be no more unified Council response. There would be no more arrogant pronouncements about human inferiority. The war was effectively over. 6 months later, the galaxy looked very different. The Galactic Council was formally dissolved, its chamber converted into a memorial for all species who had suffered under its rule. The remaining Council species, one by one, accepted humanity's terms. They had no other choice, but humanity did not become the oppressors they had once faced. Samuel Hayes, now president of the United Earth Coalition, led the effort to build something new. He addressed humanity and the watching galaxy from the memorial chamber that had once hosted the Council. When we first reached the stars, we came in peace. We wanted friendship, cooperation, the chance to learn and grow alongside other species. That opportunity was stolen from us by those who saw our openness as weakness. He paused, looking at the camera with steady eyes. They were wrong. Our capacity for peace is not weakness, it is strength. Our willingness to cooperate does not make us naive, it makes us wise. But when those qualities are met with violence and contempt, we have shown that we can respond in kind. To the species of the former Council, we offer a choice. Accept our terms, acknowledge your crimes, and join us in building a new galactic community based on mutual respect and genuine equality, or continue to resist and face the consequences. One by one, they accepted. Trade agreements were established. Technology was shared. Old enemies began working together on projects that benefited everyone. It was not perfect, Old hatreds did not disappear overnight. Some council species resented humanity's dominance, while some humans wanted harsher punishment for those who had tried to exterminate them. But the direction was clear forward, toward something better. On every human world, on every ship and station, memorials were built to the crew of the Endeavor. Their names were taught in schools, spoken in ceremonies, remembered in the hearts of every man, woman, and child who looked up at the stars. Nathan Cole, now 93 years old, visited the main memorial on the anniversary of the attack. It stood in the center of New Washington, the capital of the coalition, a wall of polished black stone with 400 names carved into its surface. He walked slowly along the wall, reading names he knew by heart. Martha Simmons, Captain Daniel Shaw, Lieutenant Katie Morgan, all his friends, all his colleagues, all the people who had died simply because they wanted to explore the universe. His granddaughter Emma walked beside him. She was 17 years old, with his green eyes and her grandmother's red hair. She would be starting at the military academy next year, beginning her own journey among the stars. "Do you think they would be proud of us?" she asked quietly. Nathan considered the question for a long time. He thought about the war, the battles, the lives lost on both sides. He thought about the new galaxy that humanity was building, the partnerships being formed, the future that was finally possible. "I think they would be proud of what we became," he finally answered. "They went out there hoping to find friends. Instead, they found enemies who wanted to destroy us. But we didn't become like those enemies. We fought back, yes, but we also showed mercy. We built something better than what existed before." He placed his hand on the memorial, feeling the cold stone beneath his fingers. "They would be proud that we remembered them, that we honored their sacrifice, that we never forgot what they dreamed of achieving." Emma stood beside him, looking at the names of people she had never met, but had grown up hearing stories about. She understood now why her grandfather had dedicated his life to this cause. She understood why humanity had fought so hard. "The galaxy is different now because of them," she said. Nathan nodded. "Yes, and it's up to your generation to make sure it stays that way. To keep building, keep reaching out, keep showing that humanity deserves its place among the stars." He smiled at her, the first real smile he had allowed himself in many years. "We won the war. Now we have to win the peace. That's the harder part. But I think we're red."